Welcome back and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. I am Kenneth Shark Kinney, keynote speaker, strategist, host, and your chief shark officer. Do you know exactly what to say? Are you using the magic words for influence and impact? It's something we all should be learning more of, whether you're an email marketer or a copywriter, a B2B salesperson, or even a call center agent. Mastering those moments with a spoken word can make or break much of your success. So the question is, do you know exactly what to say? Phil M. Jones is an NSA Hall of Fame speaker, the author of the best-selling Exactly book series with over 1 million copies sold, producer of the most listened to nonfiction audiobook of all time, a trusted advisor for some of the world's biggest brands, and an entrepreneur since the age of 14. And on this episode, we'll discuss exactly what to say, living in London and New York, never leaving launch mode with a book, the power of three, the curious questions people don't ask enough of, most people, sheep, and safety in numbers, the no's into yeses myth, going fishing in the maybes, a Phil on the spot moment, soccer/football playing Phil Jones, stealing some Google rankings, magic words in Vegas magic, the Beatles and the Stones, and a lot more. So let's tune into the author of Exactly What to Say with a shark who knows exactly what to say, at least on this episode anyway, of A Shark's Perspective. Phil, welcome to A Shark's Perspective. Would you give us a little bit about your background and your career to date?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, a pleasure to be here, Shark. It's a delight to be on the show. In terms of background, professionally speaking, I've been in business since I was like this high. So I started when I was first at 14 years of age, started knocking on doors of neighbors, asking them kind of politely whether they wanted their cars washed. By the age of 15, my little car cleaning business was making me more money than my school teachers. And I built a really varied career onwards from there, building businesses, working in corporate retail, working with some major Premier League soccer clubs on the sponsorship, commercial side of things, built a property business that turned over £240 million at its peak, and then started a career in my mid-20s as a professional speaker trainer in the sales training space. And between that point in time, sort of 2008 and now, written, 9 best-selling books, spoke in, 59 different countries, 5 different continents, trained more than 2 million people, and had a real fun time working from different industry to different industry, really helping with just one thing, which is helping them master the art of communication, typically for commercial gain, largely focused on the area of spoken word and influence in those moments that matter.
Where do you call home now? It's the States, or are you spending half and half, or what?
I remember once being a kid where I couldn't decide between whether I wanted like the chocolate cake or the apple crumble, right? I couldn't decide between the two. And my answer, even as a child, was, why can't I have both? And quite often I would have that at dessert time when eating my meals. I want both those things. And why choose? So I have 2 homes. I have a home in the idyllic countryside about 30 minutes outside central London in the United Kingdom. And I have a home here in the Upper West Side in Manhattan in New York City. And my wife, family, and I enjoy the benefits of both those at the times to suit us. And because we have families both sides, we strategically built our life that way around, that we're never too far from home. And our homes are either side of a little puddle called the Atlantic Ocean.
So where is a better place to raise those kids, though?
Again, both. You know, we talk about diversity of thought. We talk about the fact that for people to have a greater understanding of different groups of people, they need to be around different groups of people. And New York City is wonderful because it is a melting pot of every type of human, every type of culture. It's the best and worst of everything, all squeezed into a very, very sort of potent environment, which I adore. Do I adore it 365? The chance to be able to get away from that and actually see a slower pace of life and meet with people who appreciate and value things in different ways that aren't necessarily money or aren't necessarily the hustle and the grind, etc. I think gives my kids perspective. And the greatest thing that I believe I can do for my children is keep providing them with choice. If they have the choice to see more and then choose who they are within those choices, they don't get pre-prejudiced as much as naturally we all pre-prejudice the people that we spend time around, but they get a chance to see more and perhaps can make decisions as to who they want to be earlier in life.
Well, Charles Dickens said it best, I believe. He said it was the best of Times Square, the worst of Times Square. That is New York in a nutshell. So I want to talk to you about this new little book all the way back from 2017. exactly what to say. I had the pleasure of hearing you speak at a National Speakers Association's winter conference, and you talked about something that really stood out to me as somebody who's about to launch a book. But you basically talked about the number of interviews you've been doing since this, and that you treat every week or every day like it's launch week.
Yep.
Can you describe what that means to you?
I think if you look at any brand that has served the test of time, that has gone on to be iconic or had legacy status, etc., it's never left launch mode. It's always been in this indication of saying, how do we keep this idea alive? How do we keep this idea fresh? How do we keep it running forever? And you can look at, even things like the Marvel comics that have been, movie upon movie upon movie upon all these different genres of ways of being able to keep that dream alive. I've taken that same viewpoint towards my book. I've then looked at it like the music industry. I take so many clues from the music industry. Is, the Rolling Stones are finding new fans. They're not writing new music. And I think what we can be doing as authors and speakers and people who are the curators of content and the creators of content is find new audiences as opposed to write new material. And there's a lot of people to be able to shoot at. But what everybody's doing is diluting the potency of their message. Well, not what everybody's doing, what many people are doing is diluting the potency of their message by trying to be too many things to too many people. So they end up being nothing to everybody. Whereas what we do with Exactly What to Say, the little book that we're talking about here, is I'm not giving up on that, right? I'm going to be writing Exactly What to Say like Psy Ride's Gangnam Style as being the greatest hit that will actually provide a 50 plus year career and leave legacy that sits behind that. And you do that by keep banging the same drum. Right, is I'll introduce Exactly What to Say to audiences this week that have never heard it before. I also have people who are in conferences that I spoke about the content from Exactly What to Say a decade ago that are still echoing those lessons in their daily lives today. And it's the compound effect of all of those pieces as how you create something that has perennial bestseller nature to it, because it needs to be embodied into the language of other people's everyday in order for it to be able to drive a reputation. And you only do that by staying in launch mode.
So is this your 9th book?
That's actually book 4.
So if you know that you're going to continuously launch this book, why write 5 more after it instead of, because this one is sold, what, 1,000,005 copies?
Yeah.
That's 1,400,000, 97,000 more than most books that are sold in Barnes and Noble.
Correct.
So at what point do you decide this is the horse that you're going to ride the most? Other than it continues to sell well.
We're on camera right now. I know most people are listening, but here's book 5, book 6. Exactly how to sell, exactly where to start. What is the purpose of these 2 books? These were delivered with major New York publishers through a traditional publishing route where I sold the rights to. Actually, this book is a rewrite of my book 1. So Exactly How to Sell is a rewrite of book 1 that I did in the scrappy, hungry 2007. Everybody can publish a book quickly on lulu.com. I did it again. I did it right. But also from an advertiser marketer's point of view, doesn't it make more sense to have 3 books that carry the same exactly title that look like they're from the same family? It gives weight to the fact that I'm not just the guy that wrote the tiny little book, Exactly What to Say. There's strategy in the fact that these books are the weight behind the tip of the other big book. Here's book 7, Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents, right? It's still within the same line. That's another example of remaining in launch mode. Book 8 is a children's book called The Magic of Words, which is a derivative of Exactly What to Say, written for kids between the age of 2 and 9. So what are we doing? We're actually producing new assets that continually support the core asset in order to be able to actually say the heart of the ecosystem is Exactly What to Say. The other pieces are things that play supporting roles. So if this was a movie, Exactly What to Say is leading lady. The others are trying to win best supporting actor roles.
Fair. So knowing that you had this background in sales and you wrote this fantastic book on exactly what to say and with a lot of different phrases, how did knowing exactly what to say help you in the business of becoming a successful speaker?
Okay. First things first, you get to the position of being able to write a book called Exactly What to Say and speak on content around word choices at the right time, because you've spent a lot of your life making a lot of mistakes. So I was fortunate enough to start a business when I was 14 years of age, where I wasn't naive, wasn't like ignorant enough to know that I shouldn't have been able to do those sort of things. I ran senior leadership positions within some of the largest department store retail groups in the UK at 18, 19, 20, 21 years of age. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be able to do the things I was doing at the time. Society hadn't trained that out of me. What also, though, I learned that from being in those leadership roles, those high impact roles at an early age, I was continuously being prejudged as to not being competent to be able to help in those given environments. So what I learned is one of the best ways I could win credibility quickly is by borrowing third person stories. So I would study the successful people in every organization that I was involved in. And when I was looking to be able to up the performance of others, I'd never share what I think they should do. I'd tell them the story of what Jim was doing or what Sally was doing or what I'd witnessed from happening from Sandra across the way. And I was crowdsourcing brilliance from studying the mastery of peak performers. And I didn't even know I was doing it. That's what I was doing in order to be able to influence other people. I've then since gone on in different roles to be able to have probably more one-on-one negotiation conversations than most people have in a lifetime. And I was there by my mid-20s. I've also had the joy of working in hundreds of different environments. And what I've realized is when it comes to influence and when it comes to being able to win business from that influence, the majority of people get it wrong. Now, you mentioned a second ago, how do you master the words like in Exactly What to Say so you can convince people to book you? Can't convince anybody to do anything. That's what you learn. The second you start to be able to try and convince somebody, you've already lost. You're on the back foot. What you're doing is you are professionally begging, which means when you win, you didn't really win. You got given an olive branch, which means the ratio in terms of the relationship from influence is as much as they're giving you the opportunity, you still owe them in a big way. The energy is still off if your route in is convincing. What people think influence is to be pushy. How do you push your agenda? How do you push the outcomes you're looking for? How do you push towards what you're looking to try and achieve? When really, when done right, is that you should become more pulley. What selling is earning the right to make a recommendation. I repeat, that was said really simply. What selling is earning the right to make a recommendation. What that means is you should never, ever, 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 ever invite anybody to do anything unless you can say these words first, which are the words because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, for those reasons, I'd recommend blank, blank, and blank. That's easy said, but what are your conversations really? Your conversations are curiosity fueled to collect the evidence to allow you to say because of the fact that you said. So in the speaking world, right, we get inquiries. You get inquiries right now, Shark?
Oh, yeah.
An inquiry comes in, and what is the typical thing that somebody is asking for at a point of inquiry about whether you can or can't speak for their event? What are they really asking?
Well, the date, they want to know the price. That's where
are
they
you
want
available
to
and how much do you charge?
Exactly.
Right? They're about the only two questions. They can fluff it up, but really,
yeah.
That's what they're into. Are you available and how much do you charge? And you know what many people do when that inquiry comes in? They go, and they either answer with a version of what's your budget, or they answer with a version of it, well, it depends, which doesn't help either party. Here's what's missing in those conversations more often than not, and we'll use this as an example because it can serve every industry example, is what you're missing is context. In your head, you're like, yay, they love me. And you're also thinking, well, I hope they can afford me. What should I price this? This is the time to move my fee. Should I do this for exposure? Should I look to be able to try and maximize the opportunity? I don't want to shortchange myself. I don't want to miss the opportunity. I've got an empty calendar. I'd like to be able to do more. Sounds like it could be a good fit. Might be fun. I wonder who else is speaking, right? All this stuff is going through your head. So what you don't have is you don't have the ability to control the conversation. Why? Because the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it. Here you are in the moment when you're saying it, thinking, what the heck do I say in a high stakes critical conversation? Let's borrow another principle from the book. The person who's asking the questions is the one who's in control of the conversation. They come to you and say, are you available? What's your fee? We need a question to be able to position it back in the other direction. Here's the question. What is it about me and my work that makes you think I might be a good fit for your event? Zip it. Now what happened to the energy exchange? Now all of a sudden they're selling you. Hey, Shark, I love your work. I've seen what you've been doing with other marketing audiences, other advertising audiences. The insights that you bring towards people, I think, are ridiculously relevant from right now. I spoke to the committee and we've already decided you're our number one pick. What happens to confidence?
Oh, yeah, goes way up.
Goes way up. What happens if you say, what is it about me and my work that makes you think I might be a good fit for the event? And they say, well, I'm not sure really. I was just browsing Google today. Your name came up among a few others. We're just putting a group of potential speakers together to be able to introduce to the committee or to be able to share with our leadership. What happens to your confidence? See, whatever happens, you just earn new context. Everybody wants to insert their content, but content before context is merely noise, and the world is a noisy enough place. So what we shouldn't be looking to do is to insert more content to an already confusing conversation. We should be looking to extract more context so that what we can then do is position better. You extract context. What is it about me and my work that makes you think it might be a good fit for an event? They tell you. You say, how long have you been running an event of this kind of nature? Why is that question useful? Because it gives you permission to ask the next question. Who are some of the speakers your audience have enjoyed most in the past? What am I doing? I'm gaining more context. I'm learning about their ability to pay fees. I'm learning about their ability and their perception. What is your experience of working with a paid professional speaker? Catch the verbiage. What is your experience of working with a paid professional speaker? Well, all of a sudden, we've just taken free off the table, right? So this is how you convince, by not trying to convince, but by helping other people make informed decisions. Because if you say, what is your experience of working with a paid professional speaker? They say, oh, no, we don't pay speakers. What have we just learned? Context. We've just shifted the relationship. You still might want to speak. So what is it you offer speakers outside of money to make it worth their while? Now they're pitching you.
Yeah.
Game is changing, right?
Right. Yeah. And I found myself, as I was reading through this, picking up on some of these phrases, thinking, yeah, I'm not sure if it's for you, but, being open-minded, what do you know? How would you feel if, just imagine. And as I was reading through this, from a sales perspective, I was trying to identify whether or not I thought this was a sales book or a communications book. But I think what the reasons it's done so brilliantly well is it's a communications book for salespeople, which is where so many salespeople miss asking the right questions. Why do you think that the questions that they are asking are always geared towards the examples you just said? I mean, where you said where they're answering the question with the uhs and ahs and not answering the question, with, I forget how you said it, how do you feel about working with a professional speaker? Or these questions that open other doors. Why are they using the other questions that are not leading to this sale?
Okay. I remember once being in a communication skills course when I was in my early 20s, and it was a Dale Carnegie program. And one of the things that we were being reminded of is that the sweetest sound to any person in any language in the entire world is the sound of their own name, right? You know that, Shark, right? You hear your name and you're like, haha, it's about me. And then they were teaching this quantity of different ways of memory techniques and skills to make you better at remembering other people's names. Yet still, it then became profoundly obvious that the biggest reason that people fail to remember other people's names isn't because they haven't got the memory techniques to be able to remember other people's names. It's because they never chose to freaking hear it in the first place. Because they never chose to hear it in the first place. So you can't remember a thing that you didn't hear when you were too busy thinking, do I know, like, and trust this person? Do I find them attractive? What am I going to say that's going to be right? So the reason that people respond with the wrong questions is because they haven't done the work before the work. They haven't actually identified what their critical conversations are in their high stakes environments in life. So when they find themselves in a critical conversation in a high stakes area of life, they're starting to do the work in that given moment. And the reality would be, is if I was to ask you right now, what are your top 10 most high impact critical conversations in your life? You wouldn't be able to answer that with ease. Yet most of us have high impact critical conversations that are on repeat. We should know what the most of those are, and we should do the work before the work to get ready for those conversations. So when they show up, you're like, aha, I've got this. Which is how I can do a program like How to Persuade and Get Paid as an 8-hour one-man show without script, where people are like, how on earth did you do that? How did you deal with all the audience interaction? How did you do that without any notes? How did you do that in a way that, wasn't scripted and didn't have any callbacks? You didn't have to do any retakes. How did you do that? It's because of reps. It's because of the fact that I know that work inside out, because I thought about it to an obnoxious level. And what I'm inviting people to be able to do is to do that work ahead of time. What are the critical conversations in everybody's life that they should give more consideration to before they find themselves in that moment? So when you think about a sales conversation, I can ask a room full of salespeople, what are all the things your customers or prospects say that you wish they didn't? Oh, they can give me that list real quick. If I say, well, what are the questions you ask ahead of time to either qualify or prevent those things from being said? They look at me with blank faces. Because what people are taught is they're taught that what you should have is the witty one-liners. They're taught that what you should have is you should pressure and push, push, push. They're taught the fact to be brilliant in the moment. See, success in sales has nothing to do with applause for your sales skills. It has everything to do with the other person showing gratitude and saying thank you. Job well done in a sales environment isn't you were a great salesperson. If anybody ever says you're a great salesperson, that is not a compliment. It means they thought you were behaving sleazy, pushy, that you had that like hustle about you, which in some environments, yes, is admirable. But what is better is when you win and they feel like they win and everybody goes away thinking that was beneficial, not I felt like I was pushed or pressured into that thing. And that's the world we now live in. It's the world we've always lived in. Yet what it hasn't had is it hasn't had the limelight, hasn't been given the attention that it's deserved. And I think what the reason as to why people cannot respond to those moments in the way that they, in my mind, should do, because they haven't done the thinking ahead of time to get themselves ready and prepared for it.
So a lot of people, grew up they grew up with email, but when you think of how people are communicating today, a lot more in written word before they get to the actual, phone conversation. How do you see people either succeeding or failing, marrying the two? Because this is a problem for a lot of people who speak well, but write poorly and vice versa. And a lot of times just to get the introductory meetings, you may need to be a master communicator just to get the door open to have a real conversation.
Okay. Here's the number one mistake in written communication is people forget that spoken communication and written communication are more similar than different in today's world. So you used to write a letter back in the day that had a beginning, middle, and end and went through to some form of punchline. But even then, you'd leave the door open for the reply, right? You go back to the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, people would write in order to achieve a response. Today, we've miscommunicated that what we do is we write to make our point and then wonder why we don't get a reply. So the mistake I see in written form is people thinking that written form is demonstrably different to spoken form. It isn't. So what happens is people put too many questions in one written communication. They confuse the reader, so the reader does not know what to respond to. They don't give the reader something to respond to and then wonder why they don't get replies. If your emails don't get replies, the first thing to look for is, did you ask a question? And quite often the answer is no, you just made a broadcast. You finished with a period and then wondered why nobody replied. If you're thinking about written communication today, where does it show up? It shows up in Instagram DMs. It shows up on Facebook Messenger. It shows up on chatbots. It shows up in the way that people's just intelligent software is responding to people. It shows up in email autoresponders. My guess would be that everybody you interact with in your business, you would like to interact with again at some point. So what we should be setting up in written communication is never-ending conversations, not sprint to finish line, sprint to finish line, sprint to finish line. That's exhausting. Never-ending conversations, you can pick up and keep going. So I would ask you to think more about written communication as if it's spoken communication and give yourself the permission to move one at a time. Allow it to go to me, to you. Allow there to be interaction from the other person, and be careful not to put too much in any one communication if you're looking for the other person to respond.
Yeah, and I find that especially true when people have just one option in their sales pitch email. But you also talk in chapter 9 about having 3 options. Can you elaborate a little bit further? Because I love this chapter in particular about 3 options.
Well, in the book, we talk about giving people the perception of choice with the example, you have 3 options. If you talk about from an internet marketing point of view, and there's a lot of science to be able to back this up, if you give people 3 options in terms of the package they choose, and you say, like, most popular or best value, or you highlight any one of those 3 options as the one that should attract more of the attention, you'll look at your shopping cart and you can probably bet your bottom dollar that 80% of the behavioral choices is towards that option that you favored. Yet because you gave people 3 options, the perception is they were in complete control. They didn't feel pressured. They didn't feel in any way cajoled towards any one of those outcomes. Same is true in language. So you can give people, when they're stuck in a moment of indecision, you can say things like, the way I see it is you have 3 options. All of a sudden you feel empowered, right? The way I see it is you have 3 options. But what I've done is I've boxed the options. You don't have 1,000 options. You don't have 900 options. You don't have 632 options. You don't even have 11 options. The way I see it, you have 3 options. What you then do is you stack their options. So in the same way you would on a web page, you'd build a value proposition for one that is 9 miles deep. You'd build a value proposition for one that is 10 meters deep, and you build a value proposition for another that is huge and obnoxiously priced. You'd start to steer the behavior of what you wanted. How do you do this with language? Well, the way I see it is you have 3 options. Let's just talk about you and your ability to be able to actually master the art of spoken word to win speaking gigs. Shark, the way I see it is you have 3 options. Obviously, what you can do is you can keep fumbling your way through every conversation when somebody invites you to speak. Be proud and enjoying the fact that they've shown interest of you, but fail to close the quantity of gigs that you know are going to be able to support you, your family, your career, your aspirations. You could do that. Alternatively, you could do nothing. You could give up on the business of speaking and decide that this isn't going to work out for you. Or thirdly, what you could do is put time, effort, and energy into mastering your critical conversations ahead of time. So next time your email rings, next time your phone rings and says, Shark, are you available and how much do you charge? You're ready to make that conversation count. Out of those 3 options, which one's going to be easier for you?
Yeah, great point.
When you know the tools, you can then improvise in the moment. And that's what I'm looking to be able to prove in that point, right? I didn't think about how I'm going to provide 3 options to Shark in this interview. But when you understand the principles of the work, you can bring them into day-to-day conversation with finesse and without feeling like you're forcing something. But that comes from deciding this work is important. And if there's one big mistake people make with the book, they're like, I read it. I mean, it's a 72-minute read on Audible. That's me reading it at a slow professional pace, 72 minutes. So you could read it in 40, in 35. It's not a book to read. It's a book to reread.
Agreed. One of the chapters I really enjoyed as well, talking about indecision, was 14. You wrote, most people, these 2 words, which contain just 10 letters, are possibly responsible for more of my negotiating success than any other single strategy I've employed in my business. Elaborate a little bit further on what you meant by that.
If you are in the world of sales, which we all are.
All are, yes.
is you find yourself in moments where you want to tell people what to do. They're looking to be led. They're looking for your advice. You want to tell people what to do, but people don't like to be told what to do, but they do want to know what to do. This is a bit of a riddle. They do want to be led. They don't want to feel like they're being pressured, but they are looking for guidance. Yikes, right? This hurts head. So how do you, in moments of influence, tell people what to do without them feeling like they're being told what to do? Well, what you do is you borrow some brain science from psychology that says that human beings are a lot like sheep. We love safety in numbers. We love the confidence that other people have acted in a certain way, which is why we'll believe 47 strangers on Yelp more than we will any recommendation from our mother-in-law on where to eat in a new city, right? That this safety in numbers thing has been proven in its entirety. We also know conversationally that we do need to tell people what to do without them feeling like they're being told what to do. So we're looking for language to be able to help that. Next time I want to tell somebody what to do without them feeling like they're being told what to do, I'll simply tell them what most people would do. And when you share with somebody, here's what most people would do in your circumstances, little voice goes off in head and says, aha, I'm most people. So if that's what most people would do, there's a good chance I should do that too. And you choose to do it. Now, it requires emotional intelligence. Let's just be real. There's at least 3 people listening to this show right now that are like, no way would that work on me because I'm not most people. I get it, right? See, my wife is one of those people in a store that if somebody says this one's really popular and she's looking at it, she's like, put that thing back on the rack. She doesn't want somebody to say this one's really popular. That just made her like it less. Same is true with most people. There are a group of people that like that turns them off. So if you are in the group of people that is not like most people, how do I use the words most people to be able to attract you? I just simply say, look, don't be like most people. Don't be like most people. Put this to committee. Try and get the vanilla speaker that everybody is going to think is okay. Why don't you make a bold choice today? Put your audience first and create a decision that creates a moment for those audience members that's talked about for years to come, help creating your legacy stand out as the best meeting planner ever. Right? So what can I do is I can use the words most people to split any audience 90-10. I need to know, am I speaking to the 90 or the 10?
You talked earlier about writing one of these in an industry, exactly what to say for real estate professionals.
Correct.
When you looked at doing that, because obviously this would be great in 1,000 different industries to break it, and you probably get master plans to do that with different industries. But what did you see, at least with one industry, when you started looking at it and diving a little bit deeper? What did you see when going industry specific beyond just exactly what say the broader book?
In summary form, what did I see that's different is, firstly, the similarities outweigh the differences. The through line is almost identical. Why? Because we're in the business of influencing people. Yet the differences really do matter because they are typically the most high impact points that exist within that industry. So what did we do to be able to produce the exactly what to say for real estate book? I didn't just flip some examples around and change the word, property to something different. We did a series of deep dive workshops with experienced real estate agents in all different walks of markets across the United States, with solo broker agents to major teams to big brokerages, put the most diverse group of real estate peeps in rooms. And I ran masterclasses with them around understanding their critical conversations. Even with some of the most successful realtors on the planet, I could ask them, what are the things that buyers, sellers, agents, partners say back to them that they wish they didn't? They could give me that list. I say, well, what are the things that we say in order to control conversations to mean that objection doesn't appear again? We find ourselves lost for words again. So the starting point of being able to create any new custom version of exactly what to say is looking at it through the lens of the people that are needing to do this work and starting with what are their high impact conversations? What are the critical conversations that matter? And then what are the things that other people say that you wish they didn't? And in the real estate market, one of the biggest differences that people have to navigate is things like why you as opposed to somebody like you? Why now as opposed to later? And then helping people understand all the nuances of small complexities that show up along the way. So what did I get to do? I get to be able to crowdsource these scenarios through hundreds of high quality, high producing agents from different areas of the country, and then feed those back into the book, creating examples, frameworks, and word choices that support those high stakes moments. That's what makes it useful. Now, why do I do that? Why do I do that with real estate and not with every other industry on the planet? Well, because let's take the real estate industry as a whole. Is low barrier to entry, high potential earnings. These aren't highly trained individuals coming into it from a newest point of view. People building teams and brokerages are looking for training tools and frameworks in order to be able to support or accelerate the success of new agents. The market is rich and buoyant and narrow and tight, where specificity can actually support it in the right way. Could I write exactly what to say for internet marketers? Yeah, but the bucket's so wide. How do you actually be able to channel the energy through creating precise examples? You'd end up with a wishy-washy offering. So it is narrow and deep is the market, and the ability to actually be able to get those people into the same space so that what I can do is get confidence that the book is going to deliver on brief. It's possible within real estate. It's not possible within every other industry with ease.
Yeah, but I think it's so interesting that you've delved into industry expertise with this, and you could apply this, because it's the same way in sales, marketing, or speaking. If you don't have the context of that expertise, a lot of the audiences don't care what you have to say. You become that vanilla speaker. So
you can't hit what I call the "show me that you know me" button.
Exactly.
The audience of those that you're speaking to, you forget it. It doesn't matter how valuable the content is. They've decided it's not relevant because they've decided that you don't understand their world.
So I've heard you say this before, but you believe that turning no's into yeses is a myth. Why so?
My belief is actually that the point of influence is maybe. When people are in maybe, they are impressionable. When they're impressionable, then they can land either side of that fence. When people are a heck no, what right do you have to start to be able to try and turn that around? Let's just take this example. If somebody is remarkably happily married, what are the chances of being able to get them to be able to behave in a way that is inappropriate towards that? So heck no, right? You've got to get from no to maybe to yes, right? You can get a no to a maybe and a maybe to a yes, but you can't get a no to a yes. Yet the point for those of us looking to find commercial success is go fishing in the maybes. Don't try and do the work to turn no's into yeses, because you're going to end up, full of regret. It's too much hard work. There isn't enough time to be able to actually work through all of that. The only thing that wins is your ego. There's enough in life right now that's uphill. Shooting downhill, or at least on a level playing field, would be where I'd apply my effort, which is for the same reason why I do exactly what to say for real estate, and I haven't done exactly what to say for dog groomers, right? Is there's an uphill and there's a downhill choice. Why don't we choose the downhill ones first? And there are a lot of maybes in everybody's listening to this industry that are worth working on impressioning towards a more positive outcome than trying to turn around all the people that think that your offering is wrong for them. Find the ones that are thinking, well, I maybe. Find those peeps and then show them how you can help them, as opposed to trying to find the people that have said, heck no, I don't ever want to do Facebook advertising. Facebook advertising is a waste of time. You're better finding somebody that's like, maybe we could open some new doors with Facebook ads, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the people that you're going to get to be able to make a decision quicker. Those are the people that are already impressionable. Those are the people that are worth helping make their mind up.
So we're going to test now to see if you know exactly what to say, because these are my series of closing questions that I ask everybody. Okay. I ask this of all my guests, and never sure what anybody's exact answer is going to be. Could be because you have infant children that you're going to answer one way. Could be that there's an ocean between New York and London that's going to answer a different way. But What is your favorite kind of shark and why?
What is my favorite kind of shark and why? Remember, the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it. And to every one of these questions, I'm thinking about my answer for the first time in this moment.
Absolutely.
So this is not an exactly what to say moment. This is a fill on the spot moment. And favorite shark and why? I would say a hammerhead shark.
Okay.
Because everybody is too busy looking ahead of themselves and fails to look left and right as often as they could do, and realize how much opportunity is within gaze and isn't so focused on just rushing into the future. So I'm going to pick the hammerhead.
Well, knowing the age of your kids, I was wondering if you were going to say baby shark. So it was a toss up at that point.
That's definitely not a favorite. That's a less than favorite.
That's the least favorite on the planet.
Yeah.
Which passed up Gangnam Style a long time ago on most watched video, and Despacito. So, Phil, it's a special time of the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions that you're going to be asked today?
I'm ready.
All right. Chelsea or Manchester United?
My true answer is neither. Having worked in professional soccer, you can see the game from a very different lens than being a fan. But if I'm to pick, I will pick Manchester United because of the legacy and what they've done to be able to build a global brand that is insanely impressive.
And Phil Jones plays there.
which is a reason to not like them.
Yeah, that's true. Phil Anthony Jones
steals my Google rankings.
No kidding. No kidding. All right. Number 2. You wrote Magic Words, another bestseller, but let's talk a little more magic. Chris Angel or David Copperfield? Who would you rather see in a Vegas show?
I think for me, I'd go David Copperfield. I'm a little more of a traditionalist than the kind of rock star theatrical part of the show. Yet still, I would probably rather see close-up magicians like people like what David Blaine can do or what Dynamo can do, etc. would probably be the magicians that would be my favor. But again, legacy to David Copperfield for everything he's done through the years and sustaining career over that length of time at the highest of levels for me is admirable. And I'd love to see what he does to bring relevance at any point in time.
I've seen him several times. He's a master showman.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3. This ode to British music. The Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
The Beatles for their music, the Stones for their performances.
Good choice.
Back to my let's choose both, right?
All right. Number 4. Who knows better exactly what to say? Phil M. Jones or Mrs. Phil M. Jones?
Depends on the context. I would like to say in some areas me and in other areas my wife, and I think that's what is important to be able to put boundaries around.
A truly diplomatic answer. All right. Number 5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today, and we're talking American food here. American biscuits or cornbread?
Well, I can't pick an American biscuit because that ain't a biscuit. I'm in debate about how they even get the right to be able to use that word biscuit. So I got to pick cornbread because that is fundamentally in its own category. There is no confusion. Cornbread is cornbread. Cornbread is delicious. Cornbread is magic. Cornbread lives in a category by itself. A biscuit is trying to win attention from a biscuit, and it's not a biscuit. So this causes a whole lot of global confusion, and I don't want to be somebody that brings that amount of confusion to the world.
Good man. All right. So Phil, where can people find out more about you, keep up with it, what you're doing, see your keynotes and more?
PhilMJones.com is a great landing place for everything. You can find other links to other things that we're up to from that site. You can find social platforms. If you want to keep the conversation alive, you want to share comment about listening to Shark Show, you want to connect with me directly, I'm on Instagram at PhilMJonesUK, and also on LinkedIn. You can find me by searching Phil Space M Space Jones, and would be happy to be able to continue the conversation on either of those 2 platforms.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Phil, for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
My absolute pleasure. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. So there was my conversation with Phil M. Jones, an NSA Hall of Fame speaker, the author of the best-selling Exactly book series with over 1 million copies sold, producer of the most listened to nonfiction audiobook of all time, a trusted advisor for some of the world's biggest brands, and an entrepreneur since the age of 14. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with him. First, especially for authors, but just like for any brand, never leave launch mode. Love that comment. He takes clues from the music industry with the example of the Rolling Stones and how they're finding new fans, but not necessarily writing new music. Putting out new content all the time is something a lot of people just try to do. Phil says we should find new audiences as opposed to just writing new material. A lot of people dilute by trying to be too many things to too many people and constantly write something completely different. It's a good idea as well as to look at a series of books as a framework, for example, rather than just random works. Call it whatever you want, but if you find that through line, that constant theme, continue to build on it. Great content marketers take a look at content pillars and how you build on that. Know what your tabletop is, for example, and then you can have as many legs as you want to support that same table. Too many people and brands have too many messages, and they, metaphorically speaking, of course, start working on legs for other tables. And most importantly, as he referenced, Whoop'em Gangnam style. Second, when it comes to influence, Phil says that you can't convince anyone to do anything. I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but offer an olive branch instead. If your route is convincing, then for most people, pushing doesn't work. When it's done right, it's more pulling, if you will. He said, and I quote, "Selling is earning the right to make a recommendation." Love that. Be curious, ask questions that extract more context. And again, he basically said, convince not by convincing people, but by helping them make better informed decisions. Third, great point on the written word with emails versus the spoken word. You see the same thing a lot with a lot of social media too, where people post and ghost. A lot of conversation is lost in writing today. But similar to success in sales of any kind, and especially with the written word and emails, think about whether you're setting up a conversation to keep it going. Are you asking the right kind of questions and allowing that dialogue to go back and forth? That doesn't resemble a lot of the dumb sales pitches I get every day. You likely get them too. Think about that conversation. Allow it to go back and forth in a conversation that they want to have and that's focused on them. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time, and I am so thankful to everyone who listens. Please consider writing a review and letting me know your thoughts on the show. Again, my friends, be curious, be fearless, and dive deeper. And then if you will, join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.